Hello and welcome back here on the Lötwig Fusel channel to another video. Now in today's video I want to talk about how to maintain your projects so that they don't rot away. Yeah, actually I wanted to do a video more earlier and a bit more professional videos. However, I was on holidays and I got ill on holidays, and yeah, now today's the first day where I am now able to do a video as good as possible. So yeah, I'm gonna try to make something that's a bit more chill for me in terms of recording and expectation from you, so that yeah, it's not too hard to get started. All right, so what you always want to prevent is that a project rots away. If you're a professional company, it's really simple. You have a big team, and before you start with your project, the whole team gets together, or at least the leads of the team get together. They are defining the rules, the coding style, the conventions, how and in which extent unit tests are going to be used, if benchmarks are going to be used, and there's going to be a whole lot of system that's going to be implemented. There might be some DevOps consultants, or actually the whole DevOps department in the company that is setting up the repository, the connection to your Jira or other management software, setting up the pipelines, automatic build, the checks, the rules that needs to be done on pull requests, and a whole ecosystem is built around the project. And then when the developers start developing, they have their own branches or their own clones in their private repository, and or not private, but maybe just internally visible repository. They are writing the code, they are doing pull requests, and then when a pull request is created and you push to it and it's marked as ready, automatically all pipelines are executed. So the unit tests are executed, benchmarks are maybe executed. Depends on how it's configured. Automatically, some other developers, probably the senior developers, are automatically assigned to the pull request so that they can take a look at this. And the idea is that you always have one pull request for one feature, and the team can take a look at that. They can comment on your code and can take a look at if everything is good, if there is something rotting away, and you have at least two people, you and your senior developer or the code reviewer, whoever is doing that. If you have a small team, most of the time it's just somebody else from the team, and basically somebody else from the team is reviewing your code and you review the code of them. So if you have a small team with maybe 3 people, you can do it in a circle, that always one guy is reviewing the pull request for another guy. But there are multiple ways on tackling that. But the general idea is, if you have a professional project that's full set up, you have automatic checks, you have manual checks through other people, you have a defined way of doing it. Features are evaluated in a team, the way it's solved is evaluated maybe in a team, and there are so many things that are preventing your code rotting away. However, if we are doing our own private projects, which, as you can see, if I would go to my Git changes, not even checked into Git at all, everything is on add. So basically, it's just, I think it's not even connected to GitHub. It's just an empty repository with nothing added to it. I always tend to do this when I get started. At some point, this is going to be on Git, but currently I'm still working on getting all the fundamental basics done, and then we're gonna at some point have the code on GitHub. So as you can see, we do not have all these features applied for real-time rendering because it's not a professional project, right? I would love to do all of that. I would love to have code review because it's always good. You can always at some point, even if you're trying your best, at some point you forget to do something, and if somebody else takes a look at this, they're gonna see it. But we don't have this. So today I want to talk about how I tackled this problem, because what I'm currently feeling on the real-time rendering is that some pieces of the code are slowly rotting away. So what we're going to do today is we're going to do a full audit on the code base. Today, maybe we're going to take a look at the code base of the repository as well, but I don't think this is already set it up correctly. It's more about the code base that we have in here. So what I want to do today is I want to completely take a look at this, do an audit with you. So an audit basically means that we're going to take a look at the whole code, and we're going to see what the problems are. And then we're going to solve them in an example way. There are more stuff that I need to solve that's probably going to take me a bit of a time today, and yeah, we basically just want to make sure that we refactor everything and we have a non-rotting repository, or we try to stop the rot. Because if you have the rot going on and it's too late, it's hard to stop it. All right, so how do I tackle this? First of all, let me close everything. Close all tabs. This is everything. This is how I started. If I would do this like professionally, if somebody would consult me for their projects, I would probably start like with the folder where everything is stored. So kind of like the root folder, RTR here. So we can do this just out of curiosity. Quickly open this up in VS Code. We're going to use it or need it anyway, so yeah. So how do we stop the rot? Now, first thing is I would take a look on how everything is structured. I can already see that the VS folder is excluded. That's good. The build folder is also done. That's also good. And the vendor stuff, which are basically the Conan dependencies, it's also removed. That is also good. So this is already looking good. Everything that needs to be away is away. We have the app directory. We can take a look at that one. This one is actually committed, mypack64. This is definitely some rot because this is definitely not something that we want to have. At least on Git. Currently, this is just because out of my testings. However, binary output is something that we don't want to have. So I do basically just want to ignore all of my pack64 files because pack64 is my output format. We are not starting with a pack64. This shall never be on Git. This is one rot cleaned up. Now what we have is logs. We have quite some extensive logs, so I could just delete them all very quickly. Like that. That's quite some extensive logging. Maybe I should implement something that is automatically deleting that. That happens with your debugging. If you're debugging a lot and you have logging in there, you're of course going to have a lot of logs. Maybe we should add a script that removes it, but I do not want to like over-engineer stuff again. Now, checking for rot inside of my projects directory is a bit more involved because I need to know how everything looks, but this is important because I did change a few things. Now the cache, I've already checked that one is totally fine. The cache info is on the latest version. The output pack is actually now in the cache, interesting. So this might be even completely rot, so maybe delete this completely. We have the data directory. This is kind of like the input data. We have an FBX and an OBJ. For now, I want to keep both of them because this is what I want to show in the tutorials, that at the end it doesn't matter which one you use, OBJ or FBX. So for now, both of them will be in here. In resources, we have that JSON definition, and I want to quickly evaluate what's going on here. So the configurations, that is all good for the generators. Yeah, that's actually okay still. Hot reload is something that I have not implemented yet, so I'm gonna leave this here. Properties, yeah, I think I know how they work now, or you should know how they work, so I'm just gonna remove it. Type and URL are also not used yet, but they are required. I'm going to remove the properties because it's just a JSON array, so it's good. And has actually changed from the implementation as well. Everything else should still be fine. What had if I found here for the attributes? Okay, so the data directory was in large file storage. Yeah, I'm sure it's probably going to make sense. All right, so now source is a different story. We're going to take a look at source when we are getting here. My git ignore is good. All the other scripts are totally fine. I'm not going to check for like rotten code in Python, or maybe we're going to take a look at the Conan file to validate that all of the libraries that we are using are still required. Asm and FMT are required. SPD log is required because it also requires FMT, and I think I already used FMT on my own. So that's both required. We have ASMP here, that's also required. JSON is required. LZ4 and hashing is required for building and the projects. STD-UID is also required for UUIDs. That one is actually rot down here because W child support didn't work. I mean, these options in general didn't work. However, in order to prevent it from rotting more, I think I'm gonna add a comment. Does not work. Why? So, does not work. Try in future versions. So I'm just gonna add a comment here so that I know and I don't need to do the work twice. Now my pre-make Lua file is actually fine. However, we're gonna later on do a bit of fiddling around here because I know a few bugs that I don't like. So yeah, but currently this is all tailored well because I know how pre-make works up until now. Now let's actually go into the code base. Now, as you can see from a layout, we have the RT tool, the RTR editor, and the librtr. What I already see is a bit of rotting in my naming conventions. RT tool and librtr and RTR editor, they are not following the same naming scheme. I don't like that. I know why I have done that, because basically my new project function did take a p-name, which is a project name. And I wanted to have my output name different so that the X is named properly. However, we're going to change that. Actually, what I want to do now is I wanna workspace and then I include these from source. So in the editor, actually I want to change them completely. Name is gonna be editor of the project. However, output name is, I think, the value that we can change. This one shall be the proper one. I have a hell of a lot of stuff here open. Yeah, of course, if I Google output name, it's not really gonna get us to something, but it get us to CMake. That's interesting. That's interesting. It's not called output name, it's called target name on pre-make. Okay, so target name, and I think, now of course I don't have the difference here, and because I don't use Git currently, librtr, I think it was RTR editor and something like that. So now it's a bit better. Now it's called editor, and the output name is RTR editor. But we now want to have like a convenient name throughout. RTR itself, it's called librtr. Target name is also gonna be librtr. However, I want to call that one just RTR for real-time rendering. Which means that the editor actually needs the other link to that. Links to librtr depends on RTR tool, so links to RTR and depends on, I'm really gonna spoil you, it's gonna be called tool. And links to RTR, and it's gonna be called tool, and the target name is gonna be the RTR tool. So this basically means that we want to regenerate my whole project, but I was not happy on how this was going on. I initially had these names and they are kind of like inconsistent and they are a rot. So that's some rot that I want to remove here. All right, so how do we prevent this from rotting even further? Well, I do need to delete the projects here because they're gonna get different names. I do not have a mechanism of deleting them, and normally you don't need to delete them, so it's fine to do them by hand, to remove all of them, and then to regenerate the project. Should just be able to call autogen, and it should do it. Yeah, okay. And now it has regenerated all of that. I think I should just be able to type in come on, real-time rendering SLN, and it should open up Visual Studio. Yeah. All right, so now it is called a bit different here. Let's push the button here. I think here we should also push the button so that everything is laid out correctly. Right, now we have the proper view back. And what I want to do now is I want to do a quick build of the editor. First, let me set the editor as a startup project. I think it has done this automatically. However, I might want to do this with pre-make as well. Start project for Visual Studio. This is also some rot because I haven't done this yet. So let's go to premic5.lua and here's a startup. Start project, edit, editor. There we go. Now this should be set up automatically. I don't need to rerun this. It's not that required now. But here we go. Now I want to go to my editor and quickly hit a build so that we can see and check all the rot that is happening. Now, one rot that you're going to get if you're doing projects is warnings. You don't want to have warnings in your build output, and especially you don't want to have all of that shit in here. And that's the next rot that I want to fix. That's also the interesting rot that we're going to fix. It's yeah, it's a bit involved, and I'm not quite sure how we want to tackle a few of these things. And it might require stuff that I actually need to check, and yeah, actually requires me to do some more important things. But before we're gonna go and we're gonna check all these linker stuff that's gonna go on here. This is one main issue that's happening. I want to first fix other stuff. So first I want to fix my warnings, and actually the warnings are not many. They are just in my puck default compression, and I think the problem is that it's converting from size to int, and I think it happens a few times. It happens here, compress bounds, the compress function itself, and the decompress function. Alright, so what is the problem? The problem is that we are working with 64-bit values, while LZ4 does not work with 64-bit values. So what we need to do is we need to check if we can actually do the decompression, because LZ4 only supports integer values, and the input maximum supported value is LZ4 max input size. So what we need to do is we need to validate that max input size. So what I want to do here is basically move all of that code out of there, and I want to check if size smaller equal LZ4 max input size. And I don't think that the compiler is going to be smart enough to already detect that it's now in the correct bounds, because it could try to evaluate that value. Yeah, but it does not. So what I do is I'm just adding a plain style ccast here, because there's no save. And my temp size is probably going to be an int, because the compress bounds returns an int, so this is actually fine. And this means that this function shall now no longer have a warning. And we just have one warning here. That's the data size there, and basically what I want to do is I want to make it in a similar way. So let's maybe say something. Yeah, we were gonna do this like that. If data size, no, one second please. Data size is the final size, right? Both of them need to be... Okay, I need to validate both of them. So let's just keep it validate both of them. So if blob size smaller equal LZ4 max input size and data size smaller equal LZ4 max input size, then do that. And do conversions here. If I now compile it, I shouldn't get any error. However, I had an error previously. I'm just going to rebuild the whole solution, then I'm going to get the warning back. And that's going to be fine. And let's see. There it is. Gimport. Yeah, of course, the linker issues are still in there. It is here in the... gimport. What is that? Warning. Bigger equals signed, unsigned mismatch. Number of meshes is unsigned, and the integer is a mesh index. Yeah, the problem is that if you have an unsigned and a signed, no, it shouldn't be a problem. If that is bigger, that should work. But what we can do is we can convert this to an unsigned int, since we have already done the lower check. If it's smaller than 0, we're gonna already go in here, else it's converted to unsigned. If it's bigger, equal, and then this should be fine and shouldn't give me a warning. All right, so that's fine. We have successfully fixed the compiler issues. Now we just need to fix the linker problems that we have. And I know where they are coming from, but I haven't really didn't really bothered finding the solution for that. So the problem is that it cannot find the PDBs. Now we are having debug compiled versions of all of our libraries. However, we do not have the PDB available. Why do we not have the PDB available? Well, because Conan is actually building them in a separate environment, and then it's copying them to the vendor directory. And inside of the vendor directory, we have a hell of a lot of Lua files. The tutorial is coming. As I can see today, my voice is back and I can do videos. It might sound a bit different, but I can do videos without having to cough every like 2 seconds. And that's good, so I can actually continue on doing all my videos that I want to make. Now what we have are all of these Lua files. We're going to go to that in detail. These are basically just going to contain all the properties of the libraries for the different configurations. And then they are automatically loaded by Conan deps.premake5.lua. This is like the latest implementation for Conan. And everything is good. Now, what we are interested in is the host directories, because there are all of our dependencies. And for example, if we would take a look at ASMP, you can see that we have a debug and a release folder, very simple. Include directory with all the headers, lib directory with the library, and a directory with the license. Everything good, everything how you should redistribute libraries. Right? However, if we are taking a look at the debug directory, we have the same structure, and the main problem is that we're having is that the library directory is containing a lib, but it's not containing the PDB. Where is the PDB? Well, I think I know where it might be. I'm not quite sure if I can get the path since I'm doing like a full export. Right, there's this Conan directory, this special one. If you're taking a look at this, you can see that setlib is kind of like used from a cache with that UUID. I'm not quite sure where this directory is, but I think we're gonna be able to find it without a problem. It is going to be in my users directory. User profile. And inside of my user profile, there's a .conan2 directory. And there might be the cache. Yeah, there it is. P, and there is ASM, 2 versions. One of them is the debug one. I don't know which one. Let's maybe say that one. D and P. P is probably the package. Yeah, this is the package that has been generated. And B is the build directory. Now, inside of build, x64 debug, all build, no, there's nothing. Where are you? x64 lib maybe, debug? All right, there you can see here's the PDB. There's the library and the PDB, and we need to find a way to copy them over. Now there are 2 ways. First of all, we couldn't use the exports at all. If we don't use the export at all, we are basically redirected to this directory by Conan, and then Visual Studio is going to be able to find them. However, I want to try if I can find a way to actually copy the PDB as well. Now, for that, I want to first get the latest version of Conan. So, pip force reinstall. Because I have probably some ancient Conan version. Version. Yeah, I have 2.2, and 2.2 doesn't even support pre-make. However, I have patched the files manually from my branch, and that's not a good idea. Right, we want to have the proper Conan version, and I of course have not opened the CMD as an admin. Now we have an admin CMD where I can properly reinstall that. Can I force when upgrading pip install, upgrade, force, reinstall? That's it. And that's gonna be Conan. This is gonna completely give me a new Conan. And pip is also outdated, but that's not a problem. Or at least not now for the video. Okay. 2.04. Now the first thing that I want to check is that my patch actually works. I haven't done that actually from the official release, but I shouldn't really see the problem. It's actually rebuilding stuff, okay? That's interesting, that can take a while. Alright, there we go. Now everything has been generated correctly. However, we have made an issue in our Premic 5.lua. I cannot do this here. The problem is if I do it here, the project context is active, so I need to put it kind of like there, and then it should work. Let's quickly see if everything works. Yeah, everything has been regenerated, and if I reload all, it should also build. Let's quickly build the whole solution again. I don't think that just upgrading Conan will solve it, but it might. Maybe they are copying the PDBs because other people had the issues as well. No, they are not copying them by default. Okay, so now that we have the latest version of Conan, we can now actually try and find an issue. Now, the easiest way to solve it would be, hey, linker, ignore this warning, and we wouldn't get yelled at. But the problem is the linker is searching it, and I think it's slower if it's not finding it because it searches like all paths. And normally it checks, hey, there is the library directory, is the PDB next to it, okay, and we go. And if it's not next to it, the kind of like searches a whole list of directories. And that's not really what I want. So ideally we can solve it. Since I'm not very familiar with the latest version of Conan, we need to kind of like go through that and find out what we are doing. Now, what I am doing here is I'm like specifying this output folder, and I am saying I want to have a full deploy. And now I want to find a way to also deploy PDB. So Conan deploy. I then actually need to do a custom deployer, but it's not nice. I would love to do a custom deployer in my Conan file. Okay, that's not really how it works. So let's try it out by removing like the full deployment, because we really don't need it. I thought that this feature might be nice, but it's not that we really require it. Alright, so now here is Lötwig Fusel a few like half hours later. No, probably not that long, but yeah. I tried to remove that full deploy to see if it works. However, it does not, because it internally already is doing like a packaging, and the PDB is there missing, and the problem is that I can't even compile because one of the libraries seems to need the deployer. If it's not getting deployed, it's failing completely. So yeah, so what I have done is I have changed this explicitly not, and we need to find another way to copy the PDBs, and I don't think that we can. Right, so what we're gonna do is we're just gonna ignore the linker warning. In the linker options, ignore, and then the warning. This is just gonna be making our life for now a bit easier by not spamming the console. It's not ideal that we cannot copy them. We could copy them by writing something called a custom deployer. However, I do not want to go into that in that video. This is something that we might want to do in the future. So yeah. Is it enough if we are doing this when setting up linking? Probably. Linker options. So is it called just like linker options? Is it? Yeah. No, just link options. Okay. Link link options. Okay, so I'm gonna ignore. And what was the linker warning that we got? We got the, I think, yeah, 4099. And we're just gonna ignore it. It's not fine. I don't like it. We should probably add like a comment and say to do implement custom Conan deployer for PDBs. And then we could run both of them and so maybe set up the directories correctly. But I don't know. I'm gonna see if we can do that. But for now, I just wanna add this in here and then do a quick, maybe let's do a clean solution first, since I fiddled around quite a lot. And I mean, it's probably gonna take still longer than if it would find them. But we are not... okay, so we do not want to do it like that. We just want to do it here. Okay, just a number, not the LNK before it. It makes sense because it's just saying that LNK so that we know it's LNK. Wherever LNK is. LN, ha ha ha. Okay. So, do it, please. Thank you. No warnings. That's good. That's what we want to see. All right. So, a bit of rot removed. Maybe not in the best way, but this is why, especially on personal projects where you not have like the DevOps team that's managing something like that, you need to do these audits from time to time. All right. So now we have our build system set up. Now we can actually audit the code. Now tools is completely empty. We do not need to audit anything here. The editor itself, there is something that we need to do some auditing on. The first thing that I want to do my audit on is that define UUID system generator. That is something that we would not want to have in here. This is something that shall go into our build system, and so that we also don't need to include this here. This is important because the system generator is only usable when this is defined. I don't know why it's not defined by default. Really have no clue why they don't do it, but yeah. Do I already have some global defines? I don't think so. So let's add them in here. Global defines, and I just gonna add UUID system generator in here, which is going to add this to all of our projects, and this is then gonna magically bring back this generator. This might take a while, or a recompile. Nobody knows. Probably a recompile. The compile should work. So, yeah. Now we don't need to include UUID manually, and everything is good. Alright, so this is kind of like all the general rot that you kind of like can remove in like a sensible way and showing it on YouTube. Now we're going to talk about the rot that's not sensible solved on a YouTube video. And that's the rot that's going to take a long time to solve. It's the rot of going through your code and fixing stuff you don't like. Right, so taking a look at every source file. At least every header. And taking a look at everything is good. And my problem that I'm going to find, I already know that I'm going to find it, is that at some point I have undocumented code. I do want to add all of my code with Doxygen documentation so that I could, in theory, Doxygen them, because this is going to grow a lot. And if I don't have documentation attached, we're going to have a problem. Documentation is a very important thing on a code base so that people can use it. And since this is a library, right? Like, you're not gonna supposed to use all that infrastructure stuff later. That infrastructure stuff is tended to be used behind the scenes. However, if you wanna work with my library later on, it is important that you basically know all of the functions that you use. And for that, I want to later on generate Doxygen documentation, and I don't have it everywhere. And that's the main issue why I'm actually doing this audit, because as you can see, some of them have it. You can see this is nicely documented. At least, like, I opted in for not documenting I didn't document all of them. Okay, so I maybe still want to document them. I'm not going to document operators, right? Operators are a trivial thing. We don't need documentation for them. But all other functions shall be assigned some documentation, also the internal stuff. So you can see there is some rot going on here. I decided to not document private members. Functions I want to document them, members not. Members shall self-describe. UUID, generator name, consumes, produces, and artifacts. It should be self-explaining. That's the idea here. You only want to have documentation for the stuff where you really need it. And for me, everything that's public should have documentation. This would mean that that one, create artifact, shall also not be documented. However, since I'm also internally developing the library, I want to document them. So my kind of like rule for this is every function shall have Doxygen documentation attached. Every type shall have attached. Enum value shall have them attached, but not the members. They shall be self-explaining. And that's what I want to do now. And you have now the joy of being finished with the video and waiting for the next video on the channel. And I have the joy of now spending like maybe probably an hour going through all of my code base and doing documentation stuff. Okay, so thank you for watching. Sorry that this is the useless kind of video. I hope it was not completely useless. And a bit interesting. However, proper videos are gonna come, but I wanted to have something quick up and running to see how well I can do videos now since I was ill. And I'm really happy to see that I am able to do videos, and I want to do a few more videos today then, since I can do it. But a bit of a break, of course, with cutting the video and doing my documentation. And yeah, I hope that I can now, from now on, supply you with all videos you need and want. So thank you for watching. See you in the next video. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and have a nice day. Bye.